Hello, I'm Michael Diston. I'm here with Chris Malloy and Steve Fortunato of TMFD Financial. We're talking about selling practices. And let's get right to the chase. Let's talk about the money. How important it is to get the best value for your practice.
Well, I think most people want to be able to get the highest price that they can for their practice. You worked hard all your career, that you want to be able to reap the rewards. So the value of practices these days, however, varies greatly. The key driver, the key determinant on the value of any business really is about the cash flow that it generates, about its profitability. There's a lot of talk these days about EBITDA. It's a technical term, earnings before interest and tax and depreciation. But this is the key number and multiples of that number. So for example, these days, a lot of dental practices trade at 6 times their EBITDA. So if the free cash flow in a practice is $250,000 after paying the doctor and the expenses of the practice, that practice might sell for 6 times or $1.5 million. So I think the real key through the exercise is to find ways to improve the efficiency of a practice so that the cash flow is as good as can be, and that will attract the higher price.
What might some of those things be, Steve, that a practice owner can do to try and get to that level?
Yeah. As Chris mentioned, the key is to try to increase that EBITDA number, because the greater the EBITDA number, the greater the sale price. So what we notice is a couple of main factors. One of them is the sundries or the supplies that a practice owner might have to incur throughout his practice, and being able to cut down on some of those sundry supplies from, say, on average 7% to maybe 5%. Just simple things like ordering or looking to see where there's some wastage. The wages is an important number as well too, as the wages represents a large portion of your expense ratio of your practice. The largest, absolutely. And we tend to find that that ratio sometimes is anywhere from 25 to 30%. So being able to try to manage that expense ratio as best as possible, not necessarily getting rid of people, but looking at, is there ways that we can improve their efficiencies so that we get a better return at the end of the day.
So we've talked a little bit about salaries, and we've talked about sundry supplies, and those numbers are extremely important. Sometimes it's difficult to just, the added benefit of changing from 7% sundries to 6%. What about productivity? What are some ways that a practice could consider alternatives to actually improve revenues, which might be actually more impactful on the bottom line of their practice?
Yeah, in fact, I think a lot of dentists come to us asking about ways they can improve their revenue, and they get caught up in looking at marketing expenses and all the external marketing that they can do. I mean, a good website certainly is important these days, but print ads can be very expensive in ways of improving revenue. So what we like to say is focus on areas of dormant practice revenue. All right, so what is that?
What is that?
Yeah, so that's areas where there may be opportunities to increase revenue within the patient base that you have already. With our coaching team, one of the key areas they look at is how to improve the hygiene program. There can be elements there that offer improvement. We have some key performance indicators, benchmarks if you will, as to how much production a hygienist could make per hour, or the number of procedures in the year, and that type of thing, so that there's ways to improve the hygiene program, recall visits, scripting and language with patients for improving case acceptance. So I think there's a number of ways, in fact, revenue could improve just with the team and the patient base that exists already.
And I guess the same goes for a dentist who might not be doing certain procedures, or may have high referrals for particular procedures that they don't perform in their own practice. Might be another area that they could focus on too.
You talked about other procedures, or sometimes we find that certain skill sets that doctors or dentists are comfortable with, and that they do refer out a number of procedures. And sometimes that adds to the value of a practice, and that necessarily that there isn't any current profit being obtained by it, but there's potential. So if they find that a lot of the procedures are being referred out to a specialist, and maybe there's some work that or skill set that the current or the future buyer may have that could add value as well too.
So that might even affect the multiplier in terms of their EBITDA. That's right.
Absolutely.
Very good. Great. Thank you. What can the seller do to make their practice more attractive to a buyer?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that may be sort of hidden elements to getting a practice ready for sale. One of the key ones is the premises lease.